Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to something very rare, something that's happened, gosh, almost never in my lifetime. And that is the New York Jets actually didn't do something during the NFL, something dumb during the NFL draft. So, suffering Jet fans out there, hooray, we make a draft where 2 years in a row we didn't screw up on the first pick. So, that being said, let's go right to the top 15. So, number one, work in progress, building destruction optimizations. So, if you've been in any of our tests, and hopefully some of the people who are listening now and watching now were in or are in the test we're having today, you'll see that for you new guys and gals, it might not be what you expected. It might be a bit crazier. It might be, again, 9.4 million block building being destroyed with 200 trebuchets and a whole bunch of other stuff. But these tests, while they look great, part of what we need to do is to keep improving performance. So Andrew's been working, Rob's been working, and we will continue to work on optimizations and improvements based on these tests. We record everything. I film every video I film. Every time I'm in a test, I film a video. We send it to the engineers if there's an issue. And so, yeah, expect many more optimizations going forward. Oh, I forgot. Hey, thanks, Rich Creepy Uncle, for the pizza today. A lot of people enjoyed it. I didn't because, hey, I can't eat pizza right now. But it looked interesting. Number two, work in progress, tech item, terrain queries. So Lee checked in several months of code changes for terrain queries and debugging UI to help solve terrain query. Okay, it could be written a little better, but that's okay. And mesh simplification issues. This is currently disabled while we get it profiled in our massive siege scenario and work on optimizations. Exactly. That is why, again, we test. That is why when people, I was chatting to a few of our backers just a minute or two ago about why we're at times now more CPU bound, which we never were before, versus GPU bound. And things like rebuilding the meshes and things like obviously destroying the building put much more pressure on the CPU. So, this is why we do these things, and so far, it always worked out really well. Number three, work in progress design. Ben and I are working on new designs for several exciting things. I don't know how exciting all of them are, like doors. Doors are necessary. I'm not sure terribly exciting, but needed. But we're also working on new scenarios and new siege engines. So I think that's much more exciting than doors. Super necessary tech, but doors. Number four, work in progress tech items, support classes. So Anthony has been busy coding in the foundation for the support classes abilities. So once the initial components are in, he can then move on to the rest of their abilities. Work in progress tech, color grading sky settings. So while he is working to expose a bunch of new settings in the editor for Art to begin using. So he's got cloud settings already hooked up, and he is doing other things as well. So what does this mean? So one of the things that we hadn't done any work on until recently really was the sky. And, it was looking kind of quick, programmer-ish for the longest time because we had very little time. We always spent very little time on it. So as we get closer and closer, obviously, to launch, we did say we were going to be prettying up the game. And so, yep, time to start prettying up the game. Not that we're launching next week, obviously, but now's the time to get all this stuff in so we can have the most testing time and iteration time as possible. Number 6, work in progress, UI, orders. So AJ did more work on orders UI this week, working on ranks and permissions. So if your order is late, well, you know who to blame. So number 7, UI crafting. No comment from you. What's the matter, Max?
Sorry.
So if your order, it must have been a long week for Max, like the rest of us. Work in progress. I mean, sorry, not a work in progress. UI crafting. So Christina and AJ also landed the crafting UI ingredient changes. These changes allow for more flexible recipe rules, as we talked about last week. So this was the final step in getting the new changes to the recipe system added. So yeah, more stuff to test. Number 8, work in progress, gameplay, infusion items. So Christina has added support for infusion items. So as I've been talking about from the BSC presentation, the crafting system here is intended to be extremely robust. It is going to give you folks so many things to play with, and infusions are one of them. Infusions are something you add to the base base alloy, the base item, to change it a little bit, to add and alter certain values that have to do with the weapon, with the armor, with the item. And so obviously that's moving along nicely. Number 9, tech, crash fix. So Rob and Matt spent some time this week tracking down and fixing a nasty server bug found by Strike JK. Well, thank you, Strike. Your help is appreciated, and continue, to do so, please. We love it when backers help us out and tell us about things. It really does make our life so much easier. Number 10, work in progress tech, post office. So we've mentioned post office here before. It's our generic message sending system for things like scenarios. So Caleb is currently working on optimizations to support the amount of load we are planning for it. Now, what does that mean? Even though we're not a scenario-based game, even though battleground scenarios are not going to be part of the main game, as we've discussed from the beginning, except for new players, like super new players, like when you first come into the game. During testing, we're going to put more of a load on scenarios. We have to. There is 0 point, especially now, of building an open world and letting you folks run around in it in the hopes that you'll find each other, you'll do battle with each other, and we'll get the kind of data we want. We don't want that data right now. What data we want, and especially over the next few months, is the data that you could get in a much better way through scenarios. So a true siege scenario, now what we're running now, which is a stress test, through a proper, 8-man, versus 8-man, or 8-man versus Zerg, or anything else that we want to test now in the same kind of conditions that you'll have once the game launches, after you spend the time looking for the group, or looking for the fight, or getting to the keep. It's pointless for us to try to build a very large world and just tell you folks you can run around in it for a few hours a day, or a few hours on the weekend, or even an entire weekend. That won't get the data that we need. We want to put you all in a situation of, frankly, beating each other up with abilities, with siege weapons, so we can see how things really are going to work. We've got some certainly perfectly fine scenarios coming out. The intent, and since I've been working with Ben on the document, I can say this without fear of contradiction. The intent is not to spend a lot of time creating these scenarios. They're not meant to be drains on the studio. For example, the siege scenario that you're seeing, we're going to rework a little bit to make it a much more viable, play scenario. Because the way it's set up now, we've been really clear. This is not something you come in and you really want to play because there's too much going on. There's already 1,200 NPCs or 1,000 NPCs with 200 trebuchets and everything else going on. That's not any fun for you folks. This test is solely to test stress on your PCs, on the servers. And even at the end, when we bring in a whole lot of NPCs, that's also valuable, maybe, hopefully, God, I hate it when it happens. You're like right on the verge, and then you can't sneeze. God. Oh, that's frustrating. Anyway, so when we do that, you get to see not only a whole lot of NPCs running around, but you get a feel for if we can, get enough of you, which we hope we can, to join in on some of the larger scenario tests, what it's going to feel like. So what a big Zerg versus another big Zerg will feel like. What will be a big assault on a castle? What will that feel like? And so that's why we're doing what we're doing, whether it's testing this scenario or the other scenarios we will be bringing in. But these other ones are intended to be much more fun than the one we have right now. Number 11, work in progress, VFX, Wave Weaver. Mike is currently working through more effects for this class's abilities. Okay. Number 12, Art Tech, SFX, Projectile Sound FX. So DB has received some one-on-one time from engineering to now allow him to mix the audio of projectiles according to ownership. So what does this mean? This means it will allow you folks to have a better idea about what's going on around you when you have as many effects flying around as we have. I mean, if you go in again to today's test, and everyone is welcome, you'll see what we mean with 200 trebuchets and the magic mortars and the archers and the mages. These are all projectile throwing classes or weapons. So there's a lot of stuff to sort through when it comes to the sound. And so these kind of changes and other things on the way will make it much easier for you folks to enjoy the experience. Number 13, work in progress, art, character, LODs, and initial weighting. So we're just about the end of the road on these and should finish them early next week. Dion completed several more armor sets specifically for the male and female Lucapan, as well as clean up on existing Tuatha and Viking assets. I mean, what does that mean? Same thing that we said in the past. Allotting is the way all game studios take down the level of detail for any model, because you don't want to spend as much time rendering something that's super far away, of course, that is as opposed to something that's super close up. So as we continue to do more with allotting, we should get even better performance out of the engine. Number 14, animation, one-hand combo weapons. So Scott finished off a pile of animations for one-handed weapons, spears, and shield combos, and is currently working on setting them up for use. And these will replace the old animations that are currently in the game, and then we'll begin creating more unique attacks for hammers, axes, and daggers. So last but not least, number 15, animations, Lucapan mages. So Sandra retargeted all the shared mage animations to the Lucapan skeleton, and now these are up and usable on Hatchery. So this week we've been running a lot of tests. You've seen them on Wormling Prep, on Hawking, on Hatch, and I think we did also on Wormling as well. We will continue to be doing this, frankly, until we launch. In terms of a weekend test, there won't be a weekend test this week. One of the guys who would need to do it is out this weekend, and the other one ran the test last week. So I want to make sure to give him this time off, and they'll continue running today's test for the next at least 2 hours. So that's it. I want to get out of here 15-20 minutes so I can go do some other things. Got a lot of video to go through. I want to get some screenshots for you folks for tonight's update. So let's get started.
All right, folks, 15 or 20 minute Q&A. Give us your questions. Go for it. Strike says, first of all, thanks for making it to the Q&A, MJ. Salty asks, with all launch classes being a prerequisite for Beta 2, does this include crafter classes?
Oh, God, absolutely. Crafters have to go in well before Beta 2. We intend them to go in, as you can see from the attention we're paying to crafting. It is something we care about, and so, oh no, crafters will definitely guaranteed be in before beta 2.
People must be writing up their questions. Strike wanted a clarification on one of the top 10-ish items. Will arrows from different realms sound different?
Well, that's the intent. So if you have an ice arrow flying through the air versus a flame arrow flying through the air, they should sound like different arrows.
And Docile Bischoff asks, I heard you managed 8K bots plus users. Is that true?
Oh, God, yeah. So on Saturday, what I like to do at the end of each of the weekend tests, and sometimes during the week as well, I like to just bring in as many NPCs to see what happens. We've been up at 9K before, but I hadn't gone up to 8K yet in the weekend test, I think. So took it up to 8K. Now, at 8K, they were mostly non-functional. Some of them were working, but as I've said before, when it comes to NPCs, they haven't been a focus for us. Our ARCs and bots have been. The trouble is that the ARCs are quite expensive to run because they are running on their own instances, whereas the NPCs do not need as much power. Now, the problem is the code right now is still single-threaded. So until we can get, it multi-threaded like the rest of our code, the performance is going to be a little worse. Or it's going to be worse, not even a little worse, than ARCs. On the other hand, we can still get easily 1.5K of them, and they function fantastically. And then performance starts to go down after that. And I think around 3,000 to 4,000, it just doesn't die entirely, but it really gets, they're not useful. But what they are useful for is that you still have to render them, and we're still, updating them. So it's good and bad. They're not perfect, but the fact that we can get that many in and your renderers deal with it very nice, or our renderer deals with it very nicely, and that they are still updating and the servers don't crash, pretty good sign for a live game.
Sly Penguin jumps in to say, thanks again for all the great communication with the community. Really appreciate all these types of streams.
Oh, you're most welcome. I mean, this is something I think all developers need to do, but especially developers like us who have gotten so much of our funding from backers. We keep our investors up to date. We try to keep you up to date. I think it's an obligation. I was trying to think of the right word, and I think obligation is the right word that we should all have the moment we take money from anybody, whether it's even a publisher or backers in your case, or investors. If we don't do that, when we're really not, I think, I want to be very careful about this, but I think we're not keeping faith with those people. Not being able to release something on time, okay, that's not, I hope, from my perspective or yours, a breaching of trust. Not communicating, not letting people know what the status is, that I think is a breach of trust. So we will always try forever, as long as I take anybody's money, besides just my own, to do what we're doing here. And so, we haven't slackened our pace at all in terms of developing the game, certainly not lately. And we certainly haven't slackened either our commitment to always talking to you folks, whether it's live like this, or live in the game, or on the forums, or emails, or Discord, smoke signal, massively, whatever. Because it's...
I like how massively came behind smoke
signal, yeah. Well, that's when you know that our stress tests are really burning.
Right.
See a smoke signal.
When it starts smoking.
And so far, the nice thing is, so far during the tests, nobody who's come in, which is a sign of the fact that our backers actually do read our emails at times. that nobody's machine was reported was running, super hot. Even some slightly older ones, which I didn't think could take it, but so far so good.
Druged asks, can you tell us about the status of the progression system? We see that it is partially for collection. What will it look like when players are getting upgraded or new skill components?
Well, certainly you can get an idea from what we've done already what it's going to look like. Progression in CU, of course, is multifaceted. And I've been saying this from the beginning. It's not as simple as, hey, you did something great by killing this NPC or 5 NPCs, and you earn experience points, and then you use your experience points to level up your abilities, or you go to another level, and then your abilities level up from that. That's obviously not how the system works. Nothing has really changed. I mean, nothing has changed as far as I know since I initially laid things out. And that is, you do things in the game, and they have an effect on your character. So if you use your sword, you get stronger. Your abilities grow. We track what you were doing. So if you're using your sword, of course, as you've used it a number of times, as you've killed enough, or fought enough enemies that are not, NPCs, those skills will go up. Then you'll get rewards from your king for doing other things that will allow you to either acquire new skills or will also allow you to level up certain aspects, of your character. But that's only part of it. There's obviously more with housing and other things. Those to be discussed later.
Bumble asks, will we be doing any ability testing in the old scenarios, or will there be a new scenario for ability testing?
New ability. So, testing of the new ability system will probably happen mostly in the new scenarios, depending on time. But we could easily reuse what we have if we just wanted to throw together a quick ability test. I mean, it would be kind of simple. We take one of the large maps, put the spawn point at either end of the map, and say, go, go, go. We can do that, but I think we can be a little more creative. But the ability builder, I think, is supposed to be out of review today. We'll see, and if not, it'll be out of review next week. And if it makes it through review, you'll see it in the game. And that's when things obviously start getting a bit more real. Using the dev UI is one thing, but having the real UI, at least this pass at the UI, kind of a big step. So hopefully you'll be seeing it next week.
Are we at the 5-minute warning?
Now we can go for a few more minutes.
Alrighty. Dino asks, I'm still catching up on the news. I know the shapeshifters are planned for after launch. Are all the other classes still making launch, or is something getting pushed?
Nothing getting pushed yet.
There's the spirits. Are they getting...
Nothing is getting pushed.
Oh, okay.
So far, nothing that was not... let's see. Everything that we've announced, because I don't want to talk in negatives, because then people get confused and I get confused. So far, everything that we have announced as a class for launch will still be a class for launch. We have not said that any of the extended classes will be brought in early. We said we'd love to do that, but we're not promising that, certainly. In terms of features, nothing has been pushed, and we're making changes, of course, to things like number of armor locations and how many health bars you had to have. But those weren't things that were ever set in stone. Those were all just systems and mechanics that I thought were interesting and worth trying. But no, nothing else as far as I know, has been pushed.
Strike asks, do the new one-handed melee weapon animations include new animations for showing a player swinging with 2 one-handed weapons at the same time properly?
That's a damn good question. I don't know the answer because I did not see these. Have not had a chance this week to see them. Hey, Tyler?
Sorry.
So, no, there's no sorry. It was okay. So, Strike wanted to know, with the new animations that we were doing for one-handed, does it show them properly if they have a weapon in the other hand? With the proper animation for that as well?
Does it show it properly if you've got something in the other
Yes.
Yeah, right now it's a first pass of 2 weapons in your hands.
Right.
Later we'll start differentiating maces, axes, so they'll
Okay.
have their own animation.
So I don't know if you heard that. The answer is yes. It's a first pass, and that we'll be working on improving that going forward.
Captain Panic asks, will you be able to understand other realms' languages when on the battlefield, or will it be like in Deok, where it would say the enemy says something in a language you don't understand?
You'll have that. I mean, I said, when I made that call for Dark Age, it was very simple, and the reasoning hasn't changed over the decades, is that I don't want trash talking between realms, because that can get really nasty and very discouraging for other players. And that's not the kind of game we're making. We want you to understand your realm. We want you to understand your team. We don't care if you don't understand the guys on the other realm. And like I said, I believed in that from the beginning of Dark Age, even when we took grief for it. But I still believe in it now, so we're going to stick with it.
Fat for Larry asks, how do you see future content in terms of player progression after launch coming in the game?
Hopefully a lot of it free. It's part of the subscription. So, we talked about 2 major things in terms of post-launch: extender packs and expansion packs. We all know what expansion packs are. They're things that are meant to, be done every year, every 2 years, if you're Blizzard. Extender packs are things that we're going to be giving to you as part of the subscription. So this is something, obviously, we did with Dark Age, and other games have done as well. And some games have done very nicely with that in terms of, ensuring a continued stream. Whether it is sometimes new races, sometimes it's new classes, though usually those are paid for. Tends to be content in the sometimes new areas, sometimes some new weapons and things. We'll have a mix of those. Anything that we've labeled, as an extender pack, will be simply the stuff you get while you're a subscriber. With the expansion packs, there'll be something extra.
Strike asks, expanding on the language question, what about written language, like on potential signs, buildings, and roads?
That'd be awesome. I mean, that would be great, but I didn't think Vikings could read or write. Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to get cards and letters from the Vikings, backers from that. Sure, we would love to have that. That'd be one of those great little, RP immersive kind of functions. But we'll see. But it would be great, except for the Vikings.
How long can a Viking fight?
All the day and through the night.
Right on. Farmer Kofi asks, are there plans for a Realm Herald, in-game or out-of-game, for leaderboards, etc.?
Oh my God, yes. I've been talking about that as well since the beginning. Yes, absolutely. I think it was one of our Kickstarter goals, post-funding rounds. During the Kickstarter, I believe. I don't think it was post the Kickstarter. But yes, oh my God, yes. And one of the nice things about exporting the amount of data we technically can export is that it will make doing it a lot easier. Won't be easy, but it will certainly be easier.
Captain Panic asks, will there be a transmog system in the game? Or do you plan on player-crafted armor to already look awesome enough?
Well, we certainly would like players to be able to have really awesome armor or weapons or whatever. By doing the things the way we're doing them, we hope we can do that. And what I mean by that is, as you know, for just about every other MMO on the planet, between the racial gear you sometimes have and between the class gear you usually get, that puts a lot of stress on a team to create a lot of items. And that means not only larger teams, but it does mean trying to be original compared to guys, from another race, from another class, or even from another game in some cases. So by doing things the way we're doing it, which is not locking by race or class most items, that our artists will be able to spend time focusing on a more limited number and make them great. One of the things that Ben and I have also been working on in the past couple of weeks is the dying system. So I think you folks will be kind of happy about that. It's certainly a good one.
Ryan on the YouTube asks, are you considering penalties on death other than a run back to your corpse or gravestone, and are corpses lootable?
So yes, and sort of. In terms of yes, yeah, there's no question. I've said this before, that death has to have a little bit of a sting. And if the run back is short, then there wouldn't have been any sting if it was just that. And I'm not saying one depends on another. I'm just making the point that if death is supposed to have a sting, and it's supposed to be the corpse run, what if there's no corpse run, therefore no sting? So there will be some sting. In terms of looting a corpse, what we've said from the beginning is that you don't have to worry about your items being taken when you die, but there's also going to be a benefit for the person, who's able to kill and loot an opponent. And it's easy enough to do that. We really don't want people to be in fear of taking their best gear, out into a battle. You don't want players to have to make that choice. Making a choice about, well, I can't carry everything in the world in my inventory, that's a perfectly fine choice. But the idea in this kind of game of saying, well, you have some nice gear and it can always be looted, that'll mean that most players, when they have very special gear, will be extra careful with it and extra cautious about what battles they go into. And we don't want that. We want you folks to be able to go out, get into these battles, fight for your realm, and not have to worry about, oh, am I going to lose my stuff, or I won't be able to play my character for hours or days or anything like that. There's no reason to do anything anywhere near that. But we also want to tell players that there is a benefit for being the one who is part of a group that kills a player, or that you're the one who kills a player. So there'll be things that you will absolutely get for successfully killing an opponent. But not to the extent of that it strips the other player of their stuff. Okay, 5-minute warning, folks.
We've gotten through most of the questions.
Yay.
Swipper asks, last time you brought up crafting and having something to say about the dying color system?
Sure. So what I said, what I can tell you right now is that if you look at the other crafting systems out there, or the dying systems, excuse me, we're going to be right there with most of them. We want to give players a lot of ability to dye their items. There'll be obviously multiple dye channels and things like that. In terms of what else you're going to be able to do with the dyeing system, we'll talk about that when we're ready, which won't be long. Honestly, it won't be long. But, that's the basics, right? Lots of colors, multiple channels. That's kind of important. So, I think you guys will be pleased with it, and certainly we're open to suggestions always if you guys don't like it and would like something else. But I can't imagine the vast majority of players won't like it.
Oh man, people are banging out the interesting questions at the end here.
Of course they are.
Lodoween asks, do you have any concerns that realm pride will be taken too far and lead to demeaning behavior against opposing realms?
Oh, sure. I mean, if I didn't have any fear of that, I would let you all speak the same language. So, yeah, that's always a problem. It's something we saw in Dayak, certainly something in Warhammer. Other games have seen it. We certainly don't mind you folks celebrating and being happy, but there is certain level of incivility that we would prefer not to see, which is obviously one of the reasons, for the no common language, policy.
Johnny T2 asks, new around here, are there going to be endgame raids, or is the whole of the endgame RVR?
So the game is RVR, but there's also the depths. And so if you want to think of the depths a little bit like a raid, obviously if you play Dayak or you know about Dark Age or even Warhammer, you know the concept behind the depths. Big, nasty dungeon, just taking RVR dungeon. They'll take it to a whole nother level with this game. So, I think there'll be plenty to occupy you besides just straight going out and doing PvP in an open world situation, excuse me. Because it's the same thing. If you say open world scenario or situation.
You want to bring it to a close?
No, got anything? That was okay.
All right, we'll keep
See
going.
if you got a great one.
Man, we really went through them today. Strike asks, with the maps, will it be pre-explored completely, none, or only terrain with important points?
Wow, that's funny, because that's another thing we were discussing this week. So, this is hot off the presses. So maps are supposed to be what we said they would be from the beginning. There is a world map. The world map isn't going to be super detailed. It isn't going to be like, hey, you are there and you know exactly where you are, in the world and can see everything around you essentially on the map. It will not be like that. Is it supposed to, be pre-rendered, look good? Yes. Is it going to be something that's interactive to a very small extent? Because I've said, from the beginning that, the maps in this game, whether the in-game, map, HUD, guide to exactly where you need to go at every moment, doesn't really fit our game. It's not what we, you folks said you wanted either. So I think you'll find that the map itself will look really good and have some use, but not be the be-all and end-all it could be, and is in some games. We are, on the other hand, looking at things that, I think you players are going to want to know, and store, like as you explore different areas, make notes on what you see. And we don't want that to have to be done via pen and paper. You want to be able to share those things. The scouts, for example, will need the ability to go out there and make even better maps than necessarily the ones you've seen, or you'll see when you come in. Scouts have got to be... I think if you look at the stuff we're doing with scouts, this is a class that's either going to fail miserably or be really fun to play. Well, no, it's true.
I want to play it so bad.
Yeah. See, scouts, when you look at a mage and you go, hey, I want a mage that's a big fire, user, that's pretty easy to do. I mean, you can still screw it up, but it's relatively easy to do. Something like a scout, not a lot of things like it in other games. And so that is certainly going to be challenging. I think they will be very useful. I think they'll be a lot of fun to play. They won't be for everybody, but for the people who want that kind of behavior, I think they'll be great. And so that will be one of the things they will absolutely be able to do for your realm, and why they'll be very useful to have during RVR, especially when it comes to keeps. Okay, were you going to say something, Max?
Oh, there's just a quick follow-up. Calm Tempest, will I be able to make maps in-game and sell them to other players?
Yeah, that's what we want to do. I mean, there's no question that I want players to be able to record, make notes, and sell things to the players. Now, whether it will be map in the sense of, hey, I have just a standard map, whether it will be a book, whether it will be a combination, that we're going to work out. But absolutely, we want players to be able to record what they do and then sell some stuff, because that would be just cool, it's immersive, and useful. Again, especially during RVR rating. So, having said that, that's a perfect way. I'm glad we waited. Thanks for the great last question. So again, there will not be a test this weekend. We are running a test now for at least probably the next 2 hours. So if you are Alpha, IT, Beta 1, Beta 2, come on in and test with us for another couple hours. Other than that, I want to wish everyone a happy weekend and have a good Friday. And I will celebrate once again the New York Jets not doing something stupid 2 years in a row, which is amazing. If only the Knicks would do that. Long-suffering New York fan here, other than the Yankees, because they won a lot. Again, having said that, have a great rest of your day. I hope to see some of you back in the game, because I'm going to head back there. And we'll see you soon. See you next week.
See you later.